In this episode of Vaticano, we explore the different ways in which the Virgin Mary has been represented in art throughout the course of history. While Our Lady has been depicted representing different cultures, ethnicities, and nationalities, all have attempted to represent one historical person, Mary, the mother of Jesus. How is it then that Our Lady hasn't acquired fixed physical features? This episode will explore this question. With the incarnation of Jesus Christ, God acquired a human face. We all know the face of Jesus and his physical features very precisely. From the first centuries, Jesus' face was depicted and represented in a similar way to the images and icons of today. However, the image of his mother, the Virgin Mary, hasn't acquired fixed physical features. In different countries, she's represented with different faces, and in every apparition, she even appears differently. In Fatima, Our Lady looks like a Portuguese. In Guadalupe, Mexico, she appeared as an indigenous on the tilma of St. Juan Diego. As at the apparitions in Kibeho, Rwanda, her skin is dark. The question arises then, if Our Lady is an historical person who has been taken into heaven, body and soul, why don't we know her original face?
It's such an interesting question.
Let's explore this question with the help of art, history, and theology. But first, with art historian Liz Lev, let's look up the oldest image of Our Lady.
The oldest image we have of the Blessed Virgin is not a portrait. It's not as an icon would be. The oldest image we have in the world is a Madonna and Child in the catacombs of Priscilla, where we see a very stylized face, but we already understand something about how she will always be presented. She's a very large figure holding the very small child who turns around to look at you. So we see her already in her sort of physical role as the throne or the ark. I mean, we already can understand that the artists are trying to show this connection between the mother and son.
The image of the Virgin Mary at the Roman catacombs of Priscilla illustrates the devotion of the first Christians to the Mother of God and reveals an influence on how she would be depicted in the future.
I think the question of a canonical image of the Blessed Virgin is an interesting one, because in sort of the automatic mind that people who study Western art, the Madonna and Child, we think to a Raphael image or a Leonardo image. But actually, there is the only thing that really is canonical, if you will, in an image of the Madonna is that there's usually a way that she is pointing towards her son. It's unusual to find an image of Mary alone. There are a few, but generally the images of Mary are images of Mary who is pointing towards her son, or in the few cases where she's indicating upwards to draw our eyes towards heaven. So I think the most canonical aspect of understanding a vision of Mary is that Mary is always going to, she looks at you, she engages you, but then she deflects you to her son. So it's sort of like that moment when she says at the wedding of Cana, do whatever he tells you. And that's kind of our connection with her, so that she can say, do whatever he tells you.
In the Christian East, it's commonly believed that St. Luke the Evangelist made the first image of the Virgin Mary, and that all the icons take their roots from that so-called proto-image, or first image. There are many types of icons, however. They're classified into 5 broad groups with Greek names. Agios Eurytissa, Our Lady that intercedes. Oranta, Mother of God, represented in prayer. Eleusa represents Our Lady's tenderness and affection to Jesus. Panakranta, meaning all merciful, and the Virgin Mary is represented on a throne with heavenly glory. Odigitria, Mary who shows the way to Jesus. To find out which type of icon is closest to the first representation of Our Lady by St. Luke, we ask EWTN journalist and relic hunter Paul Bade.
Ich hatte zum ersten Mal wir haben in Jerusalem gelebt.
When I lived in Jerusalem, I was shown an icon in the Old City, in the so-called House of St. Mark, which we were told was created by Luke. I took a photo of it and showed it to the most famous Polish icon painter of that time. This is the present abbot, Bernard Maria Alter, the present abbot of the Dormition Abbey of the Benedictines in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. He is the greatest expert in Poland. He said, the icon of Luke, but I think it is from the 6th century AD. The authentic icon by Luke is not here though. It is in Rome, so you'll have to look for it there. So then we went from Jerusalem to Rome to look for it, but nobody here knew of it. Nobody knew her, and we discovered her by chance after many years.
Stay with us, because after the break, we'll continue the search for the true face of Our Lady. In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. Rome holds the oldest known depictions of the Virgin Mary. In the catacombs of Priscilla, this fresco undoubtedly dates to the 3rd century AD. However, there's a strong Christian tradition that Saint Helen, mother of Emperor Constantine, brought to Rome from the East an icon of Mary, made by Saint Luke the Evangelist.
That image, were that image to still be around, it's debated whether or not it's still in existence, but that image is in its own right considered archaeopita because of the actual presence of Mary and the child and the role of the evangelist who was already inspired by God to produce the image. Archaeopita means not made by human hands. And so the idea is that this is something that's more than just a human representation or a painting. When we talk about this, we're talking about something that is beyond it becomes something that's more than just the cleverness of an artist. This is not the interpretation. What we're looking for is an art that is beyond the interpretation of just an artist. It's an art or an image that looks for an absolute.
There are a few icons in Rome that could be candidates to have been created by St. Luke. Among them, the Salus Populi Romani in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, the Madonna del Conforto in the Basilica of Santa Francesca Romana, the Madonna del Popolo in the Church of Santa Maria del Popolo, the Madonna delle Grazie in the Church of Santa Maria delle Grazie at the Roman Forum, and several images of the Madonna di San Sisto, known as the Advocata, and kept in Santa Maria in Vialata, Santa Maria del Rosario in Monte Mario, and in the Church of Santa Maria in Araceli.
Of the images drawn from the type made by St. Luke in the tradition of the first Madonna and Child, the most famous one in Rome, I think it would be safe to say, is the Madonna Salus Populi Romani, the Madonna of the salvation of the Roman people, which we have in Santa Maria Maggiore, and of course was famously taken out on many occasions by Gregory the Great to Pope Francis in moments when Rome and Italy found itself in crisis.
The Basilica of St. Mary Major is the oldest church in the West dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and is a monument of the Council of Ephesus, where the Church proclaimed Our Lady, Theotokos, Mary, Mother of God. Could the most important Marian basilica in Christendom indicate that the icon of Salus Populi Romani is the first and true image of Our Lady? Paul Bade says no.
Die Ikone in links im Salus Populi Romani ist viel.
The icon Salus Populi Romani is from a much later date. One can ascertain this by the fact that she has a child in Santa Maria Maggiore. One can easily date this icon by this fact, because at the Council of Ephesus, it was established that Mary is the Mother of God, not only the Mother of Christ. She is the Mother of God, and since that time, she is always depicted with the child.
Mit einem Kind gemalt werden.
Bade points to another icon which he believes to be the first image of Our Lady.
Diese Ikone befindet sich
This icon is located in the convent of the Dominican Sisters on top of Monte Mario, for this icon was personally carried by St. Dominic to the community of his first Dominican sisters in February 1221. Since that time, this icon has been locked up with them behind bars like a prisoner for Christ's sake.
Die Nonnen sagen,
The nuns say, "We don't care if she's the oldest. We only know she's the most beautiful icon of all." The artistic technique of this icon dates back to the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. In other words, the technique is clearly pre-Byzantine.
da war sie zuerst und dann man weiß nicht genau, wie es war. Nur ist es klar.
It only seems clear that this icon came to Rome in the Great Iconoclasm. In the Iconoclasm, she was rescued from the east and came here to the west. There's a very important quotation from Archimandrite Zenon, who said, "In the time of the Iconoclasm and the time of the iconoclastic controversy, the Church defended the images. Today, in the time of the Great Crisis, the images are coming back to defend the Church. This is very important."
Das ist ganz einfach. Weil
It is very simple. God became man. He did not become a book. And Mary too, she was human. And when God became man, he and Mary also became an image. Images are pictorial documents.
Dokumente.
If the icon of the Advocata at Monte Mario documents the true appearance of Our Lady, why then did she leave a different image of herself to St. Juan Diego in Mexico? And how is it that she has continued to appear with different physical features to visionaries in different parts of the world? Stay tuned for part 3 of The True Face of Our Lady. We'll be back after a short break with more on Vaticano. Throughout the centuries, the Virgin Mary has been represented in Christian art with different facial features, skin colors, and nationalities. Despite the different appearance, all these images represent one historical person, Mary of Nazareth, the mother of Jesus Christ. In representing her, Christian art has been inspired by the first images found in the Roman catacombs and ancient icons attributed by tradition to St. Luke the Evangelist. St. Luke's icons are called achieropita, for the divine intervention to leave a pictorial documentation of Our Lady in the form of an icon. But there's a second type of achieropita, the image that miraculously appeared on the tilma of St. Juan Diego in Mexico, known as Our Lady of Guadalupe, is also called achieropita. Comparing the two achieropita images, it's seen that Our Lady not only has different facial features, but she's also of a different race. Which of these images, then, displays the true face of Our Lady? According to art historian Elizabeth Lev, these two images don't contradict each other.
That is actually a very a beautiful continuation. No, if we have these first archaeopite that arrive in the Mediterranean basin, and the images that go to Constantinople, and the centers that are going to be the traditional centers of Christianity, the early Christian church, but to have one stake a claim in the New World so early on is really, I think, just a beautiful statement about evangelization, about Mary who appears, who changes her appearance, Mary who searches all over the world to create this church, Mary who is the church, always bringing her face, bringing her image to new worlds, as it were.
The Virgin Mary is not only a historical person, but she has a special place in the divine design of human salvation. Mariologist Father Salvatore Perella explains Our Lady's unique role in God's communication.
Ma cosa servono le apparizioni?
But what are apparitions for? Apparitions serve to remind us of God as presence, God as providence, God as the guide of humanity. God, however, often allows himself to be grasped by man through the best believer, who is Mary, who is, let us say, the ambassador of heaven. Apparitions are never similar. They are always different. Different eras, different situations, different contexts. Think of the first modern apparition in 1531, the Mary of Guadalupe presenting herself to Juan Diego, the guise of an Indian to an Indian. What does this mean? That heaven takes cultures into account and respects cultures.
Che il cielo tiene conto delle culture e rispetta le culture.
Christian art follows divine revelation and reveals Our Lady's specific role in the Church, designed by God.
Mary has been equated with the concept of the church, the ecclesia, from the beginning of Christianity. And the church is Catholic or universal. And so that Mary would be an image that reflects the universality of the church. If Mary is out presenting her son, pointing towards her son in Asia, then she will look like the church in Asia. When she's presenting her son to the peoples of Africa, she becomes part of that world so that she can draw all of us to the one true Christ. And it's a really beautiful thing about the multifaceted, multi-faces of Mary throughout the history of art.
Father Salvatore Perella points out another aspect that influences the representation of the heavenly reality by those who've experienced Marian apparitions, and then explain the appearance of Our Lady.
L'apparizione è
Apparition is seeing and being seen by a personal, otherworldly reality, and you see it as I see you. It is clear that it always centers the psychological dimension. For example, when Mary appears in the form of the message itself. But Mary, we know, is in the other world and is a resurrected body. So Mary could not be sad, could not cry, because she is in joy. If she appears as a sorrowful one, if she appears as the weeping one, it means that she enters into the personal dynamism of the individual to communicate to him a message of conversion, to communicate to him a message of return of God.
ritorno a Dio.
Because she is a figure who grows along with the church. She is part of this living thing that is the church, and not just this figure that just, say hi to her when you come in the room. I think it's very clear that Mary's role was meant to be one of constant intercession, and as the world grew, intercessors for all those people. People talk about the most photographed actresses, or the Princess of Wales, the most photographed woman, but really the most represented woman in all of history is Mary, and she's been represented in so many different ways. Because of that, extraordinary universality of the Church, which is personified in the person of Jesus' mother, the Blessed Virgin.
The true face of Our Lady is the Catholic Church itself. Catholic meaning universal and dear to every person and culture. Mary, Mother of God, Mother of the Church, New Eve, and Mother of all redeemed humanity.